Morning, everybody. And first and foremost, let me thank NISM and congratulate NISM for organizing a very, very unique kind of seminar named Quantaminar. I think it's a very, very nicely coined thing. And I think the session that we had just now, I think it's quite relevant in today's world in terms of the use of data that we do today, and the kind of reliance that we put on that to make our business decisions makes it a very, very serious affair, that it's not only an academic kind of an exercise that we do and kind of results that we rely on. And hence, I think we need professionals to handle the data. And it's like a kind of a decision which can either take the business either ways. So, and hence, I think the caution which Mr. Sinha also, voiced at the end of his talk, that, one needs to really also look at it from the practical point of view as to how does the results look like, and what do we really, make out of the results. As an insurance professional, I think I can very, very well, relate to the kind of usage of data and the relevance of data that one can have and use it for the business decisions. Just to digress, I don't have a presentation today, but I would just give you a flavor of kind of insurance industry, and more particularly general insurance industry. I think not much is talked about general insurance per se, because insurance, I think, is only when one thinks of, is thought of in terms of life insurance, very, very commonly understood. But I think general insurance, and for which the relevance is also increasing in recent times, it really uses a lot of data, which is very varied in that terms, and because the kind of business the general insurance is, it's quite varied in that sense. And so we need to, in fact, be aware of all kinds of data and all kinds of varieties in that. Like Mr. Sinha also pointed out about the red car. I think that's a very, very apt kind of example, and which is one of the most very, very basic thing that, I think now in recent times which has started happening. And there are ample parameters that are used in insurance to understand the behavior of the customer. The usage of data for a general insurance company comes from three primary sources, I would say, reasons. One is for pricing. The pricing of insurance uses data very, very extensively. Secondly, sales, that is the what is the kind of behavior of a customer, and what the habits of the customers are, and what kind of insurance would suit him the best. And third is the servicing. What kind of servicing modes would be preferable to a customer, and how we cannot antagonize the customer at the same time, service him with a ease and make him comfortable. So these are the three prime usages where insurance puts the data to use. And just to give a flavor, I would just take you through a background of general insurance, and then give a kind of, we can intermingle with the with the data usages, how it has gone up, and where the data is used. Secondly, I would also touch upon solvency part of it, I think, which was requested that we can talk on the solvency part of it, how in India we look at solvency. And thirdly, what is coming in terms of Solvency II, and that is the international trend in Europe, which has become applicable from this calendar year. So we would just, I'll just give us some kind of a flavor and leave a thought behind, and which will help, I think, the students to, in fact, look at the insurance in a different perspective, as not only not only life insurance, but also general insurance, I think, and which has a huge potential in next 10 years to come. And just to give you a bit of a statistics, next 10 years, the general insurance industry is expected to grow at something like 17 to 19%. And the industry size, which today is around 95,000 crores, is expected to go to around 4,80,000 crores. And that growth, I would say, is not at all impossible thing, considering the last 15 years, how the growth has been. In last 15 years, the general insurance sector has grown above nominal GDP growth rate of a country. Why I am comparing with the GDP growth rate of a country? Because general insurance as such depends on the asset creation and the assets which are put to use. And that is where the growth of a general insurance industry is generally 2 to 3 percentage points higher than the nominal growth rate. The nominal growth rate for our country for last 15 years, after the opening up of the insurance sector to private players, has been 13%, and general insurance has grown at a CAGR of 16%. So it's 2 to 3% higher than the GDP growth rate. And considering the kind of flight of growth that we would be seeing in next 3 to 5 years and the years to come, I think the growth of 17 to 90% for general insurance industry is not impossible. And that's how the size of the industry could be somewhere around 5 lakh crores. And that's where the relevance of general insurance comes in. Just to come back to some history of general insurance, in 1973, the general insurance industry was nationalized, and some 107 private insurance companies were merged into 4 government insurance companies. And there were 4 insurance companies owned by General Insurance Corporation. These 4 companies operated in 4 zones of the country, and that continued till 2000. So there was a kind of a monopoly. In 2000, 2001, the industry was opened up for private players, and thereafter we have seen some 24 odd players coming into the fray. As of today, we have 28 general insurance players in the country with a size of 95,000 crores. And it has been growing quite handsomely. Though last 3 to 4 years, I think, there has been some impact on the growth of the industry because of the impact on the Indian economy per se. However, we have seen some kind of uplift in growth in last financial year to around 13.5%. First quarter of this financial year has seen very, very handsome growth of around 17% in the first quarter of this financial year. And to just look at it from a month-on-month basis, in the month of June, the growth of the industry has been around 21%. So I think this is the way we see that the relevance of general insurance has been growing, and that's where I find that the data has become a very, very crucial part of the industry and the people who take decisions in terms of pricing, sales, and servicing the customers. Next, I would just like to show upon maybe a kind of how the industry looks like in terms of what the products look like. The most common and the biggest share of the business of general insurance is in motor. That is around 44% of the general insurance business comes from motor. Second is accident and health, which is around 28%. And balance 28% is in terms of fire, marine, aviation, crop, and all sorts of lines. Weather and crop has been again one of the most important lines which has been growing in last maybe four years. And with the announcement of the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana by Prime Minister in last budget, we see the industry, the size of this line of business growing up to maybe around 15% of the industry size. And I think that's the another line where the usage of data would be very, very important. Just to give you a flavor, how this crop or the weather insurance happens. This is a trigger-based insurance, wherein the data for last maybe hundreds of years for various regions are captured, and a trigger point is arrived at as to what is the sufficient rainfall, heat, humidity, and the weather conditions which are required for a different kind of crops in different regions of the country. And based on the trigger points, the insurance rates are arrived at, and based on the sum insured and kind of a crop which is there. And thereafter, once this season is over, the insurance is taken in the sowing season. And thereafter, when the cutting happens, that is a time when the actual estimation of the crop happens, and also the measurement of the weather conditions which were insured is also taken. And depending upon the weather conditions which are considered as a trigger point, are used to measure the output and the yield of the farm and the impact which has been there on the crop because of the weather conditions. And based on this trigger point, the insurance claims are triggered. And again, that's where I see, relevance of data. One is the, volume of data which is used to arrive at these trigger points. And secondly, the accuracy of the readings which happens. I think, the readings cannot be taken at only one point or based on only one weather stations. There are weather stations which are used to take readings. And in a particular area, there are different places where weather stations are installed, and there are different agencies which provide this kind of a data. And that's where, again, the relevance of data comes in. Coming back to the industry specific, the kind of a number of policies that are issued by the general insurance industry, I think that is where, again, the relevance of data comes in for a general insurance industry. Though the size of life insurance industry may be, 3 or 4 times bigger in terms of premium for the life industries, but for non-life industry, the number of policies which are issued are I think, 3 or 4 times the policies issued by the life companies. Last year, non-life industry issued 126 million policies, that's around 12 crore policies all put together. And in amount of claims, the number of claims which were processed were somewhere around 4 crores claims. So the kind of volume which is handled by the industry, makes it very, very relevant that the data management power and the ability to interpret the data and to make out the relevance out of it is very, very important. And that's again another point which I just wanted to make in terms of the volume of the business which is there. I spoke of the growth of the industry. Okay, now in terms of product mix, I think we discussed somewhere that motor is the, I think, biggest chunk of business which is done by the general insurance sector. The growth of this sector is primarily expected out of motor business and health business. I think these two make up to around 72% of the total business of the industry. And that's where the innovation in products will hold the key as to what kind of products the industry is able to offer. And the innovations will only come in through the data analysis and the analysis of the expectations of the customers as to what kind of products they need and how we can use this demand of the customers and provide them innovative products to expand the industry. Coming to another, I think, most important aspect of insurance is the solvency. I think we are free to raise questions. I think we can have an interactive kind of a session also, because that's how normally I take these sessions, because insurance is not so very interesting subject, I know. but if people have some kind of queries or some kind of observations, I welcome it. Okay, coming to solvency, why it is so relevant. Insurance is nothing, and there is nothing tangible, that the insurance companies offer. It's only a piece of paper, one would say, that you just take the premium, offer as a piece of paper, and that too, I think most of the people in our country feel that it's only because, that cop down the lane may ask for it. I think that's the only reason people take insurance for. But I don't think, that's the only reason one should buy insurance. But fine, I see the trend changing nowadays, because people do understand the risks involved in not only motor but also health is the fastest growing today, and that too because people really feel the pinch of the health inflation which one is experiencing. Okay, coming to solvency. I think the premiums which the company take in advance, the premiums are taken in advance, and only a paper is issued, which is nothing but a promise. And the promise is such that, if there is some event or some eventuality which happens, the company is there to back you. But this money should be available whenever there is a claim which a claimant puts in. And that's where the relevance of solvency comes into play. Just to give a parallel, it's nothing but a kind of a capital adequacy ratio that banking companies are required to keep. And that is where the insurance companies are required to have a solvency margin, which ensures that the claims paying ability of the company is strong enough, and the company will be able to pay the claims whenever the claim arises. So how does this solvency work? See, solvency primarily in a general insurance company is in terms of the amount of premiums that a company does. So that's the volume or the size of the company, and the amount of risk that the company accepts. And second factor is the claims. What has been the experience of the company in terms of claims in past, and how has they serviced those claims and honored the claims. So these two parameters are used to arrive at a solvency, and this is done for each and every line of business. So for solvency purposes, there are some 10 lines of business for general insurance which are monitored. Those are like fire, engineering, motor, health, rural insurance. Then we have something like aviation and personal accident. So these are the some lines for which the solvency is monitored. And when we look at these two parameters based on which the solvency is required to be maintained, what it assumes is, to what extent is this business which is assumed by a company is reinsured. As a concept, reinsurance is nothing but a protection which a general insurance company buys. Again, the relevance of reinsurance in a general insurance company is very, very important, because that's nothing but a quasi-capital, which a general insurance company avails. Just to give a relevance of of reinsurance in a general insurance business, to give a bit of a statistics, approximately 40 to 45% of the business which is written by a general insurance company on a whole, as a portfolio, is reinsured. Whereas, as compared to a life insurance company where the reinsurance percentages are 1 or 2%, that's it. Because the sum insured are in a life insurance companies are such that a company can keep it on its own books and can take that risk on its own balance sheet. In a general insurance, the kind of risks involved are so huge, it would be really difficult for a company to keep the entire risk on the balance sheet. Just to give you a very, very quick example, India's biggest asset is a refinery in Jamnagar. The market value of that refinery is somewhere around 150,000 crores. The net worth of a general insurance industry today is something around 35,000 crores. That's the only net worth of a general insurance industry in India. And only one risk in a country is 150,000 crores. So that explains the relevance of reinsurance, that we can't retain that entire risk on the books of the general insurance companies. And in terms of that particular risk, the amount of risk that is retained on the balance sheet in the country is hardly 1%. Hardly 1% of that risk is kept in the country. All the other risks are reinsured outside the country. Similarly, all the companies have their own capacities to retain the risk on their own books. And in the same way, each one has to have a program of reinsurance. And the amount of risk that one can retain on their books is as a percentage of the net worth. So per risk, each company has a benchmark or a trigger point up to which one can retain the risk on the book in terms of sum insured. For example, all motor risk, I think, there is no problem people can retain on the books, except there are few, high value motor cars and the big vehicles which need to be reinsured on a very special cases. But as a thumb rule, the amount of risk that a company can retain in terms of a commercial risk is somewhere around 3 to 5% of the net worth. Per risk is what is retained on the books. And based on this trigger points, people will have to design their programs to reinsure. This is just to give a very, very brief flavor of reinsurance to the audience, because that's another field where the data of risks and the experience of claims is used and of past a number of years, and that claim history is used to arrive at what would be the rate of reinsurance rate that the reinsurance company would charge to an insurance company in a particular region, because these all reinsurance companies most of them are international companies. In India, we have only one reinsurance company, that is General Insurance Corporation of India. That's called GIC Re, and that's the only one. And I think now government has allowed for private reinsurers and branches of foreign reinsurers to operate in India. And we would see the foreign reinsurers also setting up branches in India. And once we have that, we would see a good amount of competition amongst reinsurers, but good for insurance companies that they will have choice to reinsure with multiple companies. So that was on the reinsurance side. So we started from the point that reinsurance is nothing but a quasi capital that a insurance company gets to write more and more business. So once this reinsurance is applied, then whatever risk is kept on the books of the company, on that a factor is applied, is around 20% for the businesses, and for claims it is 30% for each line of business. And whichever is higher of these two will be the capital required for that line of business. This is more of a factor-based and formula-based solvency formula what we operate in India. And it's keen to Solvency 1, which was operational in Europe till the end of the last calendar year. And though we say it's a kind of a Solvency 1 and a factor based and a formula based, however, though we do take into account the risk element in the reinsurance pattern of the companies, and that's how it's to a certain extent a risk based solvency calculation. And we do have some kind of a buffers built into it, and kind of capital required by an insurance company is 1.5 times the required solvency margin, which we calculate on the different lines of business. And to the extent of 1.5 times of the required solvency, the net worth of the company is required to be maintained, and that's how the regulator tries to ensure that all the insurance companies are solvent. In our country, we have attempted to do a kind of a risk-based capital, though it has not been implemented and made mandatory. Regulator has been asking for last 5 years from the insurers to submit the kind of a risk-based capital, which is called economic capital, based on the economic value of the risk that the company accepts. However, the experience has been that the capital requirement based on economic capital would not really increase dramatically if we implement economic capital, because the existing capital formula which is operational in India is quite conservative. So I don't think we are that badly placed compared to other European countries, where the onset of Solvency II has sent jitters amongst the insurance companies that amount of capital required by them would increase dramatically. But I don't think in India we would have that kind of a problem. Okay, coming to Solvency II, I think though it is not applicable to India, I think we need to just be aware as to we would be exposed to that Solvency II in terms of whenever we are wanting to have capital from overseas for doing this business. I think sooner or later we would be required to follow Solvency II, though I don't see it happening in near future. Solvency II is nothing but it has 3 pillars. One is quite quantitative. I think that is where the I would say the quantitative experts will have to play a role, and which involves arriving at the required capital based on the risks. And what it says is that one has to estimate the capital required based on 1 in 200 event. That is ruin probability of 0.5%, having 99.5% confidence level as to what would be the capital required if a company has to survive over next 1 year. That's it. So what kind of a liability profile the company would have at 99.5% confidence level, and based on that arrive at the solvency capital required. Add to it some kind of a risk margin for operational risks, and have this capital required kept at all points in time. Though there is a kind of a minimum capital which is also required to be kept, which is nothing but the Solvency I and formula based capital which is maintained today. That's the pillar 1, which is more of a quantitative one. Pillar 2 is more of a qualitative kind of one, where the risk management framework has to be put in place. Internal controls are required to be in place, and the companies will have to quantify the kind of risk that are there in terms of not only the insurance risks but also all the enterprise risks other than the insurance risk. Then the third pillar which is there is the reporting to the regulator, reporting to the other stakeholders, and this in terms of Solvency II has just come into play from 1st of January 16. We need to see how it plays out. Though it had been in preparation stage for last 15 years, and the implementation dates has been shifted many times, but I think 1st January 16 I think is the date when they really put a hard stop, and now it is made applicable. So that's where the Solvency II is vis-a-vis the solvency regime that we have today. I think in terms of solvency and risk management, I think I have covered whatever I had to say, and maybe we can have a kind of question answers or any doubts that one want to raise. I'll keep it open for maybe 5 minutes. One can raise some questions, and you can make it kind of an interactive one. I said this because I see some students out here, they may have a lot of questions in mind. The time available for us is maybe some 40-45 minutes, but I don't think the topic is such that I can do justice to it. It can go on for, quite some time if we take, yeah.
You mentioned that around 70% is in the healthcare and automobiles. So I'm just curious to know what are the other, the remaining 25-30%. What sort of insurances?
Correct. Other insurances are in terms of property insurance, commercial insurance that I mentioned. One was all the establishments and factories, and like the Reliance refinery I mentioned. So that is one of the biggest risks, and we have so many such risks. All the commercial risks, that is around 12%. Commercial risk is 12%. Weather and crop, which I mentioned, that's another 12%. Aviation is something like 2%.
So insurance in the weather and crop section,
yeah.
Is that something which falls under the, like we have these insurance, we have these securities traded in financial markets.
Right.
So do you have a market for something like this, to hedge your weather exposure, or maybe lack of rainfall exposure, stuff like that?
In fact, insurance per se is a hedging tool and the tool for protecting the farmers against the vagaries of the weather. So in fact, for them, it's a tool to protect their crop. Though it's not a tradable. So insurance policies are not tradable. So that's what I think you said. No, it's not a tradable kind of a thing. Though we again reinsure this insurances, because we don't keep all these insurances on our books. So again, it's reinsured with the reinsurance companies who specializes in the field of, say, weather insurance. How do they protect themselves? Through the spread, because these reinsurance companies are operating across the world. They operate in different geographies. So they take a bet on different geographies, and that's how they hedge their risks in terms of that it's not likely that the catastrophe hits all the geographies or most of the geographies at the same time. If there are floods in India, so there is not a possibility that at the same time we will have floods in other countries also. So it's again the quantitative analysis which goes into reinsurance. The reinsurance companies do use it in a very, very big way to understand again what are the vagaries in India for weather insurance. What are the crops which get most affected, which are the geographies which get most affected because of the rains. Then what are our concentrations? So because when an insurance company approaches a reinsurance company to protect their portfolio, they would see what is your concentration risk, where are all your policies located, what is the kind of sum insured in those geographies that you are having. So what is the probability that the claim would be hit? Because if the claim is hit, reinsurers will have to pay those claims to us. So that's how again the quantitative analysis helps reinsurers. Yep. I think the gentleman there.
Since this is a contaminant, some link to insurance and quant finance.
Yeah.
You said insurance products are not contracts are not tradable. Is it India specific or is it a global thing? Because if they were globally traded, maybe you could use techniques from the quant finance world to hedge risk rather than the actual way of just diversifying across geographies and stuff like that. Is it a global phenomenon or just India you can't trade?
No, it's a global phenomena. See, I don't see it as a asset. Insurance policies, again, I think being an asset comes from the understanding of life insurance, where it is considered as an asset for an individual. But general insurance, the policies are not an asset, but they are a protection tool against the uncertainties which a business or an individual or any asset is exposed to. So in that terms, it's not tradable. But yes, the reinsurers do buy that portfolio from us, at a price, because whenever we reinsure, the proportionate premium also has to be paid to the reinsurers. So if a premium is 100 for a 100% risk, and if I am reinsuring say 20% of the risk, the 20 rupees has to be paid to the reinsurer. That's how it works. Though they will also give us commission for that premium that we pay to them. Just like any agent or any broker who brings a business to us, we pay commission or brokerage to them. Similarly, whenever we reinsure, the premium which is paid to the reinsurer, they do give us commission or a brokerage to take care of the commission and brokerage that we had paid to our intermediaries and the administrative expenses that we had incurred. So I don't think there is an issue or there is a question of trading insurance policies as such. Yes, reinsurers do take the portfolio, but those are the specialized players who know the risk involved. I hope I have answered.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think this gentleman here first. Yeah.
How is the penetration level of insurance in the crop sector?
Crop sector, I think, as I said, it's a new kind of a concept in the country, and the farmers are yet to come forward. Government has given subsidies to a very great extent. In past, when the states used to run the schemes, the kind of premiums that farmers had to pay was around 25 to 30% of the total premium. Balance was subsidized. In the new scheme which the Prime Minister has announced, the premium payable by the farmers are only 1.5 to 2%. I think the idea is to subsidize them balance. Balance is subsidized 50-50 by state government and the central government. I think the penetration would increase now. Till now, the penetration was only around 50%, I would say. In the states where the schemes were implemented. Not all the states had implemented the scheme till now. Now it is an all India scheme. It will slowly, spread out in other states, because it is the first year the implementation is happening in phases.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think, one question. Maybe I can take one. Yeah, last one. Yeah.
Thanks for taking the question. So this is pertaining to life as well as general actually.
Sure.
And regarding regulations, like India has very specific regulations, say capital adequacy, so on and so forth, and you'll be required to pay. Of course, European and American regulations also would be there, which will keep the solvency of reinsurers also very strong.
Yeah.
But then we always have cases like 2008, and
Yeah.
even the biggest companies go bust. So what is the, I mean, it's not quantitative, it's finance specific, but
Yeah.
then what implications can such events have? Because like you said, the ruin,
Yeah.
if there is a major catastrophe, how do we factor in the risk of ruin in such situations? Even if, say, reinsurers are having very tough time paying, or if they are taking too much long to pay, but you are supposed to honor your claims.
Yeah. Yeah.
And something to do with the technical, the legal aspect or something. If I am buying an insurance, I will just ask the agent, कि कल ये बंद हो जाएगी तो क्या करूँगा? And most of the answers is we have very good solvency ratio, the IRDA is very strict, and no one has given me a proper answer that if we go bust, they'll say कि IRDA हमको merge करवा देगी किसी से and so on and so forth. So I wanted to know your take on it. I mean, what exactly is the regulation? And actually, if something goes bust in spite of all these regulations, because in 2008 things did happen of that sort.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how are we factoring such things, and what is the implication for your individual clients as well as for corporate clients? Thank you.
I think, see, the question that you're asking is, what if the companies go bust? Okay. First and foremost, protection for that is the solvency ratio which is required to be maintained. So if you look at world over, the solvency required is to match the technical provisions or the technical liabilities of the company. You have to match it. Okay. In India, though the statutory requirement is to match with the liabilities, right? But in India, it is 1.5 times the required solvency. So it's quite conservative, and I don't see in India any company going bust because because of the reinsurances that the companies are required to do. No company would be allowed by IRDA to keep the risk on their own books because the reinsurance programs will have to be filed every year. They have to file. Okay, so in that terms, I don't see any company going bust as such because before giving them license, also they see the antecedents of the promoters. I think the most important thing one has to see when you are buying an insurance is who is the promoter of this company. No one would like to, put their name at stake, for this kind of businesses because insurance is not the only business for these promoters, right? So they have much larger stakes involved. So that's where the credibility of the promoters come into play, and IRDA before granting license looks into the credibility of the promoters, Indian promoters, as well as the foreign promoters who are coming in the country. Even reinsurers are looked into by the regulator before allowing them, and before only the registered reinsurers are allowed to operate in India, and one can only take reinsurance from those companies. I think the protection level is quite good, and as a layman, I think one should be quite assured that in India, I don't see any company going for it. Because promoters themselves have this name at stake, and they would themselves, sell the company to someone. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.